Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Power Players Podcast with your host, Harley Centner.
Thank you, Lilian, for coming on. And if you could give a quick introduction about yourself, we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'm glad we made this work. So I'm Lilian Chen, and I'm the founder of Proptimal. So we are building the 10x real estate analyst right now, and we've consulted over 200 companies on over $2 billion of transactions across commercial real estate. And what we're doing now is we want to provide institutional quality financial analysis to the everyday developer.
Amazing. So could you tell us kind of how you found commercial real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So ever since I was a kid, I've always liked buildings. I drew a lot of pictures of buildings. I went to open houses with my mother, and it's always a good experience. And as I grew up, I found real estate in college, where I was going through the career center and trying to figure out what to do with my economics degree. And real estate kind of seemed like the perfect choice because I like buildings, I like people, and I like money. So real estate kind of has all three of them. And so now I enter my professional life, where I started as a financial analyst. And then it just felt a little bit unfulfilling because I think I've always known that I was going to be an entrepreneur. So even though it was a dream job, it wasn't giving me the kind of work that I wanted. And so what happened was during COVID, I ended up starting my own agency. That's how Proptimal started, which is just me doing what I know best, how to be an analyst, how to help people figure out what investment decisions to make. And then at one point, we started scaling it into an agency. That didn't work out that well. And then my biggest turning point at that time was realizing just how hard it is to find a really good analyst. So I looked for different solutions, and finally AI really started kicking into the mainstream, where I realized, hey, what if we can scale this with AI, and how much of this can we automate? Can we get computers to build financial models and run analyses while still letting humans have the ability to make the key decisions? And that's where we are now.
That's amazing. And I think everyone is tinkering with AI, and commercial real estate has a long way to go, but I think the early adopters are in for a benefit. And I see things changing already, especially in that area. However, I've also seen that people on LinkedIn and people that I know have said they've tried using AI, but sometimes it's just not quite there, right? So are there some areas where it's a little bit still slow to catch up to the level of, say, a human?
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't think AI is able to automate the majority of commercial real estate. And the way that I describe it is AI is kind of like a qualifier, but not a maximizer, right? It's not a differentiator. So if you think about it, what makes somebody a really good real estate developer or broker or company is their relationships, the ability for them to solve problems, and all these things that would require experience and interpersonal skills and all the soft skills. AI doesn't do that. So what you're saying is, okay, AI is really good at making you more efficient at what you do. So let's say you're able to use AI to reach out to 1,000 people per week instead of 100 people. Then you get on calls with 1,000 people, but you don't have the credentials to back it up, or you don't have the ability to close the deal. It doesn't matter, right? So AI gets you in the door, but it doesn't make you a good professional in real estate. So I think people sometimes get it a little bit backwards. And I would say to most of the people in commercial real estate, you shouldn't have to panic because you're not adopting AI. You should be focused on how do I build lasting relationships and how do I build really solid track records so that if I choose to make my workflow a little bit more efficient, it allows me to do more.
That's great. And I think that the smart people in the industry are working on upskilling in their AI knowledge and playing around with ChatGPT and Perplexity and all these different apps that just kind of make them more efficient at what they do. But I do agree with you that strong commercial real estate skills really come from a foundation of relationships and industry knowledge. And AI is just on top of that. So you have to have the basic skills and then you'd have to add on top of that. So if you are missing those fundamentals, AI may not help you. I think that you have to learn them regardless. But if you do know that, adding to it, you could be maybe 100 times or, 1,000x your efficiency that you were previously, which is unheard of.
I would say there's an exception to that rule, which is if you're a beginner who's getting into real estate or you're starting your first real estate company, then at this point, what matters is not how much track record you have or how much connections you have. At this point, what matters is how quickly you can learn and how quickly you can get through the learning curve, right? So I think AI would be fantastic for that because for the first time in history, if you really think about it, AI is not just about getting a bunch of software subscriptions and trying to use it in your workflows and all these. It's more about, for the first time in history, you can have whatever knowledge you want from the internet within a way that's very, very accessible, right? And people don't realize that. It's almost silly to think about now we have the ability to learn anything we want, yet we are hyper-focused on what is the best software to get. It just doesn't make sense.
That's interesting. I haven't seen that side of it, but it's good to hear your perspective on that. I saw that you're originally from Taiwan, right? Okay, so you grew up there and then moved to the States for school?
Yeah, so our entire family moved over to California, which is where I went to school.
Okay. Do you speak Mandarin?
I do, fluently.
That's great. I lived in Taiwan for 3 years. I loved it.
What?
I did live in Taipei. Yes.
Crazy.
It was an early 20s experience and it was incredible. Love the people from Taiwan. They were some good friends of mine that I made, and I'm definitely happy to be back in the States, which is where, I grew up and am from, but it was really a great learning experience to go there. And I learned Chinese too, so, I'll tell you. 我之前去过台北，我在那里上过中文课，后来我学了中文。
你的中文很好。
谢谢。
Wow. To everyone who was just listening to that, he was really good.
Thank you. Yeah. 我希望我在美国可以用我的中文能力，可是这个比较难找。Yeah.
对，
So
比较少人说中文。
especially in Miami. Miami's a very interesting place. Not that many Taiwanese people here. There's a couple, but demographically, it's very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. And I don't know much about the Taiwanese real estate. I didn't work in the field when I was there, but I'm sure that's a whole interesting can of worms to go into and look into.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't gotten to work in Taiwanese real estate yet. I've been mostly working with the US and a little bit in Europe as well.
Nice. Okay. So you started off as an analyst in real estate or outside of the field of real estate?
In commercial real estate. So by the time that I had graduated college, I already knew that I wanted to pursue commercial real estate. So finding that first job as a financial analyst really opened the door into commercial real estate, which I'm very grateful for, because at the end of the day, what I realized is I've been working on all these institutional deals in my early career, and then I went off on my own and started serving the small, medium-sized real estate developers. And it just struck me how hard it is to be able to understand the financials of every single deal if you didn't come from finance background, right? Like the things that we take for granted, what does IRR mean? How do DCF, what is net present value? All these things, if you didn't learn at school, you have to figure out yourself. And then there's a lot of bad information out there. So my goal, at least now, has been how do I give people the tools, the resources, and the knowledge to be able to compete or underwrite deals and carry out their investments the same way that very sophisticated investors would.
I think that AI is helping bridge the gap. One person or just a couple can, match the skills of a whole company. And I think Sam Altman and some other people were saying that the next 10 years, we're going to see billion-dollar companies with just one person. Or maybe 10 people.
Yeah, I believe in that. And I think some of the best companies that I've seen so far tend to be the leanest as well, because you just need some really, really good people who are very efficient at what they do to be able to do that. Sometimes it actually costs a little bit more time. It becomes more inefficient when you have a much larger team. But again, of course, it all depends on the business model. There's certainly advantages to being able to have a very lean team.
Absolutely. And so for somebody who's trying to break into the commercial real estate analyst industry, say they are fresh out of college or new in their career, what tips or strategies would you recommend?
That is a really good question. The first thing is breaking into commercial real estate is not easy for people who don't have connections before or who didn't have family who worked in commercial real estate, right? The reason for that is I think most people just don't know what career options are available in commercial real estate. And I had the same problem as well, which is, the first year I was an analyst, I would tell people, friends and family, that I work in commercial real estate, and they all asked me if I would sell them a house, right? So I don't even think that most people realize that commercial real estate exists. And some of these people who ask me these questions were doing economics or business and are going into finance or consulting. So just to demonstrate how little people actually know about the industry. But I think the interesting thing is once you get into the industry and once you start reaching out to people, you'd be surprised how willing people are to help you, right? So I would say the most important thing that somebody can do as a new graduate is become the kind of person that other people love to help. If you can do that, if you understand what are reasonable asks I can, approach people with, how do I manage expectations? How do I thank people for the time? And what are the things that I need to do to come across as prepared? Then people would be willing to help you. So start talking to people first instead of blindly apply for jobs, because you'll learn more from talking to people more than you would just finding information online. And commercial real estate so far has been filled with people who have been incredibly generous with their times to me.
That's great advice. So all the young people who are just out of college or considering commercial real estate, or if you're doing a career switch from something else, maybe something completely different entirely, that's some great advice. It's about the relationships and making connections and seeking help and being a good mentee. So I know that I've been lucky to be mentored, well, I would say helped out by many different people, who are generous to offer me their knowledge and time. And I've also put in, a lot of time and effort to upskill and learn. So all of those things together and time will help you break into commercial real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have more information than ever as well. So you can go online. There's lots of courses on Udemy on how to do financial modeling and whatnot. There's some bad information out there as well. So I would caution against that. But other than that, I think it just takes a little bit of time to be able to figure out your path over time. If you can find somebody to be there to help you, that really cuts your learning curve a lot shorter. And of course, I want to do my part as well to hopefully put out resources, and that's what I'm committed to.
Thank you. That's excellent. So let's move into more about Proptimal. So here, if you could share with the audience who your clients are, what kind of services you provide, and maybe how you got the company started.
Yeah, absolutely. So Proptimal is here to democratize real estate by providing the resources, information, and tools to everyday investors so that they can have the same resources as larger, more sophisticated players. How it started was when I was, 24 years old. This was during COVID. I had a quarter life crisis where I wanted to start my own business. And eventually, I tried a couple of business models. They all failed. My first few businesses were complete disasters, let's put it that way. And then eventually, I went back to all that I knew, which is how to be a financial analyst, right? And so then came back to the point where I was underwriting deals and doing financial modeling all the way for first-time investors to institutions with $1 billion under management. So I've seen the entire spectrum. I see the difference between somebody who has all the resources and knowledge and tools and somebody who didn't. And the gap really shocked me because on the lower end, especially with people who are just starting out, a lot of times they would do things that an investor would never dream of. For example, buying a piece of property without ever doing a financial analysis, or yes, I've seen a lot of people do that, right? Or making egregious assumptions in their underwriting, like 5% growth, rent growth every single year for the next 5 years, or unrealistic cap rates. And a lot of times they end up losing money. So it really, I think it causes a visceral feeling where it's, if I don't do something about it, who's going to do it? And I'm not just going to let these investors lose their money because they didn't know any better or because they were fed the wrong information.
That's amazing. And it's a big leap. A lot of people during COVID kind of had these moments when they kind of realized they wanted to take a different direction. And I was in Taiwan for a bunch of COVID, so that was fun. Oh, okay. So maybe we crossed paths. You know me.
That's so funny.
Are you from Taipei?
I am from Taipei. I was there during 2020 to 2021. So like June.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely crossed paths. So tell me, yeah, I know. So tell me about your first client. How did that come about? Was it somebody that you met through your sphere that you already knew, or is it somebody that you found on LinkedIn? How did that work out?
Oh, this is a funny story. My first client was from Upwork. So that's where I started. I started freelancing on Upwork actually when I was still working full time. And one of the most important takeaways was that for the first time, I figured out how to make money on my own instead of waiting for somebody else to hand me a paycheck. And then I felt at that point that I achieved job security because I knew that no matter what I do, I always know how to make money by myself. And so that kind of gave me the courage to be able to pursue whatever I want because I know worst case, I'll just find clients. Now, it was very interesting because I was 24 years old and I was an analyst 2 years in with constantly an associate looking over my shoulder, double checking all of my work. And then all of a sudden I was by myself consulting people who were decades more experienced than me and relying on me to tell them what to do with their deal. And I had nobody to check my work anymore. So that was very, very, very scary. But eventually, of course I make mistakes along the way, but things all worked out. And I learned over time. And that has been a very, very humbling experience to be able to understand that even though I felt so much like an imposter since the beginning, I actually had so much to value because what I thought I took for granted was common knowledge a lot of people didn't have.
That's amazing. I think that a lot of us get that imposter syndrome when we first start something new, especially in a field like commercial real estate. There's so much to learn, so many people that you should know, and so many actions to take. So where do you go? And
Yep.
a lot of it is just going somewhere and then slowly figuring out what the right path is for you. So that's amazing that you started that through Upwork, a great platform that I'm familiar with. and that you were able to kind of gain more confidence that you can make your own money in real estate. And that is a big reason that many people join the industry of commercial real estate, is to make independent money, because, it doesn't have to be corporate or institutional. It's very entrepreneurial. It has finance, it has real estate and finance, and then you put them together. You can be very independent and you can make a lot of money, and you can have a lot of fun doing it too, and it gets better over time. So the longer you're in it, the better it gets. People who've been in the industry for 20, 30 years, they don't quit because it just gets better and better, so you got to push through the suck, as they say, and you start to break in, you chip away, and then eventually it starts to be an awesome place.
Yeah. And sometimes the suck doesn't end, right? Like, I think the imposter syndrome, like you said, I completely agree. And I think part of that is, like you said, there's so many different opportunities and so many different ways that you can take it, that if there is no right answer, then you have to really figure out what the right answer is for you. And that takes so much self-reflection and so much understanding of the context, where there's no point where people feel like, okay, I'm done. I've already learned everything I knew.
Absolutely. And we're never done learning. And if you have a question, just ask ChatGPT. Code.
Yes.
So can you tell me about some of your proudest moments working at Proptimal and some clients that you've been working with that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I think our proudest moment is yet to come. We're about to launch our first software that I'm very excited about. It's a financial modeling tool that allows anyone to build completely custom financial models without writing a single formula. So this is kind of like the time where, how in the past if you want to build a website, you have to learn how to code, right? So not a lot of people were able to build websites. And if you want to train somebody to build websites, that's even more difficult. But then now you have things like Squarespace or Wix or WordPress, where all you have to do is drag and drop. Same thing with Canva, right? You don't have to know how to use Adobe Illustrator anymore. You just drag and drop and you have all these different templates. We want to do the same for commercial real estate because, in my opinion, doing financial modeling takes 80% of the analyst times for the first 2 years. And all they're doing is just breaking models, breaking formulas, and then trying to rebuild it up again. So what if we can make that into just 10% of the analyst time, right? So the mechanism of actually building financial model into just 10%. And then that way they have more time to actually focus on the deal, to understand how they're structured, and to focus on decision making.
Got it. So bring it down to the deal focus rather than the modeling side, which definitely does take a lot of time.
Yeah. And also, if you lower the financial modeling requirement, it brings down the learning curve, that it levels the playing field for people who don't have a financial modeling background. So if you're a principal who is working at your own company and you don't have an analyst, then you're able to run your own modeling now instead of having to hire someone or rely on someone external.
Definitely a big need.
Yeah. So that's what we're very proud of. It's patent pending just last week, and then we'll be having a soft launch next month, which is super exciting.
Amazing. So wrap this up here. Thank you so much for joining us, Lilian. I really appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to share? How can our audience reach you if they have any questions?
Absolutely. So the best way to find me is you can visit us at proptimal.com and get in touch with us, or I write regularly on LinkedIn as well. So I post a lot about commercial real estate, about technology, and about entrepreneurship. So connect with me or follow me, and I would love to see you in the comments. I try to read all of them.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lilian. 谢谢, and we'll speak soon.
不客气, and thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope we stay in touch and hope the content has been helpful.